Upshaw with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, and we are here at Chattahoochee High School to speak to someone very, very special, Shreen Shavkani. Not only is Shreen a graduating senior, but she is also the National President of Students Against Destructive Decisions, better known as SAD. Thank you so much for having us after, I'm sure, a stressful school day.
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting, but thank you for making the drive over here. I know it can't be easy, so thank you.
Yes, thank you. So which brings me to my first point. I mean, you're a leader in highway safety. You're young. What got you interested in highway safety to begin with?
Yeah, so when I was younger, my dad actually got into a car crash, which kind of left him in a lot of severe pain in terms of like his back and stuff like that. So for me, being at least being in the traffic safety space was just really important to me, from a personal narrative where it was just kind of like always making sure that not only are students staying safe, but also adults in our community and kind of promoting these healthy practices. And then once I actually joined SAD, which was during my freshman year of high school, I kind of just showed up to class one day and my advisor, Miss Noland, was like, "Hey, we're having an ice cream social." And I was like, "Okay, what's the catch?" And she was kind of like, "Oh, well, we're going to talk about traffic safety." And I was like, "Sure, I'll come along for the ride." And that's kind of where it all started.
Wow. We love an ice cream social. So with SAD, you've been with SAD for 4 years. How has that been? All of your accolades, like what was SAD about?
Yeah, I think SAD, it has been such a tremendous part of my journey. I think one of the biggest things I've definitely seen is when I joined as a freshman, I just thought, okay, this is just a local level chapter organization. Like, it's just something for me and my friends to have fun and like make a difference in our community within. And then soon after the pandemic started, I saw that SAD actually had like a whole national reach that I was not aware of, because there's not many SAD chapters where I specifically am, but I know there's so many in different parts of the state. And so for me, when I was able to find out that there's so many different opportunities within SAD, I started becoming more involved, especially in the national level, and I joined their student leadership committee last year. And so that was an incredible experience because I actually got the opportunity to travel to DC and then also in Florida for Disney for their national conference. So I just saw that there were so many different things and so many different ways to like meet different people from all across the country, but also advocate for similar issues that we believe in.
Wow, yes, and you became the president, the national president. We love that. So you said that your father's experience really impacted you. Did your parents have any other influence on you as a teen driver, or just about you just worrying about highway safety at all?
Yeah, so especially as a teen driver, I think one thing, even before I even got behind the wheel, my parents always made it a point to be like, "Hey, make sure your seatbelt's buckled up." That's been something that they've always said to me. They've always clarified that for me, and there was never ever any doubt. Actually, last week we were driving, and my dad forgot to put on a seatbelt when we got to the stop sign, and so like the car obviously made a noise. It's like, "You haven't had your seatbelt on," and I was like, I think that's the first time I've ever heard that sound come out, because it's like, my dad has always done it so consistently that it's just been a habit that the whole family is ingrained. But besides that, I actually learned how to drive from my uncle. And so for him, like, he was always like, make sure you're attentive on the road. He always took my phone beforehand. Just like, he was like, "I know you know not to be on your phone, but I'm just going to take it anyway and just keep it." And so like, especially when I was learning to drive, it made sure that I was in the habit of not using my cell phone while driving, or like eating and drinking while driving either, because it just made sure that I was like, had all eyes on the road and I was completely attentive to that.
Right, and I'm so glad that your family did that for you. Yeah. So in general, I guess for other teens, how important is it for parents to, do those steps and make sure that their teen driver is safe on the road?
Yeah, I think it's so important. I think parents really set the role model from a young age for what children should be expecting on when they start driving. I know some of my peers, they're like, "It's fine if I use my phone while I drive," because they had seen their parents using their first iPhone 3s while driving when we were younger. Or like, for example, like the GPS, like they used to have an old, like, how do I call this? It's like a black
like the system.
Yeah, it used to come out. And so like parents would be messing with that, but that's also a distraction. And now we have Teslas, and so people are watching Netflix while driving, and you're not really supposed to be doing that at all, because your eyes are not fully on the road and you're listening to this audio and you're not really paying attention to what's happening. So I think parents really set the stage for what's happening, especially like when children are starting to drive, they think, "Okay, my parents didn't do this, I should not do this." Like, it's not even something that comes to mind. So I think they really set that foundation.
Right, and like you said, they're the role model, because as children, the first person they see driving is their guardian or parent, so that's absolutely right. With your experience and your leadership, what obstacles, if any, have you faced with getting your peers involved or interested in safe driving?
I think the biggest thing is definitely when I'm talking to someone and I'm like, hey, I'm a part of SAD. They're like, okay, what's SAD? And I explain Students Against Disruptive Decisions. And so they're like, okay, alcohol awareness and all that. But then I say traffic safety. And they're like, like, this is so random. Like, it's not something like when you Google extracurriculars to do. Like, no one says, like, oh, go into traffic safety. Like, it's just a very random way to make a difference in the community, and people don't really realize how impactful it really means. And so what ends up happening is they're like, what does that even be? Like, what is traffic safety? Like, okay, I'll put my phone down. But they don't realize that it's also, like, there's so many people that aren't wearing their seatbelts even today, even though it's mandated by law. There's so many people, like, especially in Georgia, we have our hands-free to make sure that, you know, your hands are actually on the wheel and you're not picking up your phone. And so many students are looking at that and they're like, okay, but no cop's ever actually going to catch me or anything like that. And they don't realize that there's like a huge disconnect, at least there, between like students and people in the traffic safety space, where they're like, this is at the forefront of my mind all the time. But then you have this whole separate group of people that are like, there's so many other issues to worry about. Why is traffic safety important to them?
So Shreen, if you could say anything to any Georgia teen driver right now, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing is making sure that you're paying attention to the laws that the state of Georgia has out. I think for a lot of students, they don't really realize that TADRA is like a big so many different steps within it, which includes, you know, making sure that you're taking a 4-hour course before you even get your permit, and then you have to take, you know, your necessary 40 hours before you're driving on the road and you apply for your license. And there's also the defensive driver course that you have to do beforehand and make sure that you know all the rules and laws. And I feel like there's so many different steps that teens fail to miss a couple steps. And even if they get it done, they're like, okay, I just need to get this done. I'm going to have someone else do it for me. And they don't really realize the importance of how important that is when they're actually going to be on the roads. I remember one time I was like driving and then I ended up like slipping a little bit because it had just been raining, and I was like, oh, I know what to do, because I had done those courses and I had actually paid attention and I had memorized, hey, these are all the different scenarios that I need to kind of work through before I start driving on the roads, especially during dangerous conditions. So just being aware of the different laws and the different rules that the state has, but also just making sure you're paying attention. I think it's really easy to get distracted, and sometimes I know a lot of older people as well, like what ends up happening is people just kind of disassociate while they're driving. So they're like, oh, I'm home, because it's just muscle memory. But at times, if you're not paying attention, maybe one person is speeding past a red light and you have no idea that that's happening. And so it's just really important to always be aware and just take a break before you're driving, especially to make sure that you are in a good mental position to go ahead and drive.
Yes, all of those are great tips, and it's from you. You know what I mean? Like you're a teen, talking to teens, so I mean it would behoove them to you know, to take these type of tips. Well, thank you so much, Shreen, like I said, for speaking to us again. You graduate soon, so early congratulations on that, and I hope to still see you in your endeavors in highway safety. And that is all for The Right of Way. Until next time.